Who's accountable for this absolute shit show of a fuck up?
Eavesdroppin.
Hello, Michelle. Look at you.
I'm back in the robe.
It's like a Hugh Hefner, like a Lady Hugh Hefner of the podcasting world. I said who? Hugh Hefner.
Who? Well, that's how my friend Hugh spells his name. H-U-W. Who? Huey.
But it's still Hugh.
It is Huey. Hugh. Yeah. It's a strange spelling.
It's I think it's Welsh, that spelling.
Could be. The Hef robe, it's back.
It is, and we've launched straight into absolute nonsense for you lovely eavesdroppers this week. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this podcast, Eavesdroppin, the podcast, the comedy weekly storytelling podcast with me, Geordie.
And me, Michelle. Welcome.
You are an eavesdropper. Congratulations.
Yes.
And you keep coming back. Most of you do anyway, at least the ones we know of. And Michelle, this week I've got quite a few chatty Cathys coming at you.
No.
Oh,
We've
God,
got
they're coming
mail.
thick and fast. We've got mail. Would you like to hear what I've got in our eavesdropping mailbag this week?
Would love it.
Well, first of all, we've got Charlene Happy Chappy, who is prolific in her writing, and I love it. We have great chats now, don't we, Charlene? And her mum, Margaret, a.k.a.
Magzo.
Well, they are both enjoying Married at First Sight Australia.
Oh, my
Who
God.
isn't? What a shit show.
My
I tell
phone's
you.
been blowing up with people saying, I know you're ahead. What the hell? Give me the spoilers.
No, don't give any spoilers. Don't. Because they're doing it enough for themselves. Apparently, a lot of the cast members this year are getting in trouble and being told you'll never work again.
Yes.
Because they're dropping balls and letting people know. And
Oh, yes.
it's not okay, guys. We don't want to know who ends up with who. It ruins the magic.
It does. But all I'll say is there are some surprises in store for you, English watchers of this who are behind. And it is twisty, it's turny, it is crazy. They all bring the cray. It's great fun.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Margaret, a.k.a. Magzo, as you like to call her, turns out she loves her name, Michelle. And Charlene actually calls her Mummy Magzo.
Oh, my God. Hi, Mummy Maxo.
She shared a screenshot between her and Mummy Magzo, and I was really struck, and I told this to Charlene. I said, oh, my God, that is so beautiful. The love between mother and daughter. It is so heartwarming. Oh. I thought it was beautiful. This little screenshot, Charlene sent the latest episode from us, and Magzo replied by saying, they are bloody hilarious. Just cleaning the patio. I think you're bloody hilarious, Magzo.
So do I. And thanks for listening, Magzo. We absolutely love it. Do you know what? Little shout out to Jen. I said to her, Mum, what did you think of when Geordie said you wouldn't kick Arnie's son out of bed if he farted? And she was like, oh, well, yes.
Well, she's on the money there.
I mean, she wasn't outraged. I thought I was prodding her.
You thought it was one step too far, but no, she actually wouldn't kick Arnold Schwarzenegger's son Patrick out of bed if he farted.
No, but you know what? Bloody White Lotus. I'm on the edge of my seat with that.
Oh, we've just started, so don't talk about that. That's a television recommendation for everybody. And Michelle had cause to complain about the new title sequence, the music, but actually I prefer it to the other weird bops and boops from before.
I didn't complain, did I?
You said they've changed the music. I'm sure it was you.
No, I mean, no, it's all over the internet. Everyone's moaning about it. I don't care.
Oh, I prefer it. So back to Charlene, sorry, but she did mention, speaking of Rex, she mentioned that Scarred for Life, the Instagram page that I recommended recently, and there's a book, Scarred for Life, they also have a podcast. There are other podcasts, Michelle, as we well know.
Don't stray too far, people.
Don't stray too far, please.
Come back.
Exactly. She also pointed out that the cat that she mentioned 2 weeks ago in the episode that gave her a fright is not a ghost cat. As far as she's aware, the cat's real. And we've got photos. Michelle, can we put those up on Patreon? Charlene, would you mind if we put some things up on Patreon?
You need to give us your consent, but we'd love to.
Give us your consent.
We'd
ask.
love to see a picture of Mummy Magzo with the marigolds on cleaning the patio.
Cleaning the patio, please. That would be amazing. And the cat. So our other eavesdroppers have responded. We do have others. And here we have, back in the fold, Callum. He never went away. Cal the Pal, as you like to call him.
Cal the Pal. Oh, I love Cal the Pal. Love him.
He's gorgeous. He's a gorgeous man. He is still eavesdropping, yes, he said, on his long car journeys up and down the M6. And he recently had a lovely time because an episode dropped as he was catching up whilst refueling his car at the services. But he said he binged Adolescence on Netflix, the new Stephen Graham single shot style drama. He said it's the best thing he's seen in years. And he said it's a definite telly recommendation. I've just watched it yesterday with my daughter. I would second that. Safka has written in and thirded that. In fact, I told her she was the 5th person to have recommended it to me. It's all the rage.
Funny you should talk about that because I actually was reading an article yesterday in Daily Mail. Not that I'm a Daily Mail reader, but I was doom scrolling. And there was a story about emojis.
Oh, yeah, that was a shocker in that episode.
Well, this is it.
Deciphering them.
That's it.
Yeah.
They talked about deciphering emojis and they referenced Adolescence, the new Stephen Graham, and I was like, oh, okay, he's the one
Makes
that
everyone cry.
I always get in trouble for.
You said he's a terrible actor.
Not terrible, but I was like, he's all right. Why is he a national treasure?
He's astonishing.
So this is all over everything. And they were talking about emojis and how actually on Adolescence there's a lot of emoji deciphering, apparently. I need to watch this.
Well, I looked to my daughter for that and she didn't know some of the things
Yes.
that were raised. And I do have a few issues with this, by the way, with some of the reactions of the parents. But that's for another conversation another day. Maybe we'll put that on Patreon for those who've watched it can access it.
Well, what I was kind of confused by was I use emojis in my text, but apparently if I use the knife emoji or...
Yeah, well, who does that?
Well, I work with chefs. I'm using a knife emoji, you know. But apparently, if you send a knife emoji, it can be misconstrued. But also,
Yes,
too,
I'm sure.
the other day, my friend was telling me, oh, she has to go get a mammogram. So I sent her the cherry emoji, 2 little cherries.
That's supposed to represent tits.
Yes, little titties.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, apparently, if you send peach, cherry, aubergine, or the water drops, I often send the water drops. It's like a...
Spunk.
Well, it's like you use the aubergine and the water drops together. It's quite disgusting. Well, apparently legal experts say those emojis have been used in sexual harassment cases.
Oh.
You need to be careful what you're emojiing out there.
Wowee.
I know. And then I thought, oh, my poor friend, did she get upset when I mean, she didn't reply after I said, oh, good luck with your mammogram, and then sent the cherry emoji.
And now you're up for a court case for sexual harassment, Michelle. Watch out.
Well, at least I didn't send her 2 watermelons. I thought cherries were quite cute.
Oh, God.
You know.
Well, listen, back to Cal the Pal. He said, and I want to quote him on this because it was a great line. He said, it's such a fascinating take on the impact a serious crime has on the family of the perpetrator. And I would absolutely agree with that, Callum. And he also goes on to say that it reminded him of a TED talk from a mum of one of the Columbine shooters and wondered if this was something for us to look into. I'm quite frightened about mass shootings, Cal, but maybe. But we will put that link on the Patreon because it is a fascinating TED talk. I took a look. He's an architect, by the way.
Callum?
Yep. Do you need one?
Cal the Pal's an architect.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, we can recommend his services, sure.
Yep. He's got a practice in Southeast London. They're called KHD. You'll put the link up.
Amazing.
The Instagram is KHD_architecture. Check it out.
Sounds good.
And one more thing that he said was he signed off JKE, Michelle.
JKE.
Just keep eavesdropping.
Oh, my God.
I like what you did there, Callum.
But you know what? That almost sounds like joke. JKE. Joke.
Well, we are a bit of a joke.
Wow, I'd never even thought of that. JKE. JKE dropping.
Not working. Not working for us.
So when Callum's talking about this TED Talk, do you mean we should look into...
No, he's talking about mass shootings like Columbine, Sandy
Oh,
Hook.
okay.
Yeah.
So looking at the shootings, not at the parents and how it impacts families.
It depends how we'd like to do it.
Both of those sides of that coin are very interesting.
Do write in. What do you want to hear, guys? Would you like us to take on one of those subjects?
Please write in. Well, as I said I would... from the Jejun episode, messaged my friend in San Fran.
Oh,
and I said, do you know anything about the Jejun Institute in SF? Real or just an art hoax? And she said, I know nothing, but we'll ask two people who might.
This is interesting, Michelle, because I've also spoken to people high up in the art hoax world. I've spoken to a former director of an immersive theatre company who's also American. They did not know. And I've spoken to the friend of mine who works with the KLF. They did not know. I think it's a complete hoax.
I think it's art hoax. So she sent a message to her friend saying, hey, I have an art question. Do you know anything about the Jejun Institute in SF? Real or just an art hoax? He replied, can't both be true?
A real art hoax.
I thought that is a great reply. Then another friend replied and said, I don't really know. It's been around for a while.
Oh.
I think it's just a really hard to understand art project. I went years ago, this person said.
So back in 2018.
And there's all this build up around it, but it does have a Winchester Mystery House vibe, but just like kooky ideas about dreaming.
Oh.
So I don't know.
So people have actually been, which means it is real, Michelle. That's all I needed to know. If someone's been, then it's real.
But what is real?
Because I felt that it was just real for the day. What they're saying, which has gone on and on and on for years, and it was out in 2018, and it was going for 2 years, and people were going, and people were big fans. I just thought the whole thing was fabricated for that one documentary. So a months-long filming project, not a 2-year art project.
I think it's a fake. In my opinion, I think you're probably right. I think it's probably an art project that started small. They thought, let's do a documentary, and it turned into something else. But I'm not sure we're ever going to get any proper answers.
No.
So do write in if you know something more.
Please write in about that. Absolutely.
Now, another thing I want to talk to you about, and I don't want to scare you because I know you are coming to visit me soon.
I do get frightened easily.
People have been falling down crevasses, Geordie.
Oh, shit a stick. No thanks.
Shit a stick. We had 3 snowboarders all fall down the same crevasse just last week.
What happened to them?
Well, this is what happens. People go off-piste, and the thing is, you're not going off-piste.
No way.
So you're not going to be in any danger.
The only time I go off-piste is on this podcast.
Yes, exactly. The only time I go off-piste is to grab that bottle of wine. But there were 3 snowboarders. One of them had gone off-piste, fallen down a crevasse, called Air Zermatt, got rescued. Then, probably, half an hour later, someone saw, there's some tracks. They went off-piste. I guess they were okay.
Bugger.
They went off-piste, fell down the same crevasse, had to get rescued, and then another dickhead did the same thing. So 3 individual separate snowboarders in 3 separate incidences all falling down the same crevasse.
Is there no one on the mountain who goes and dusts over the tracks, especially when Air Zermatt have just rescued one person and said, hey, you might want to do something about those tracks because it could be misconstruing to other people. We'll be here all day.
We have got patrollers, but, there's more people than there are patrols. So, and they're helping doing all sorts of other things. But look, it did remind me of this story that I did read a few months ago about a guy in Colorado because, we love a nature story on this podcast. Okay, tell me what you think of this because I was shocked. I was outraged. Shocked and outraged from Zermatt.
Strong words.
So a guy in Colorado went on a team building day with his colleagues and he was basically left to die.
What?
This older man, and they don't name him and they don't give his age.
Did he die?
Wait.
Oh, okay.
Hold your horses, Nelly.
You have to tell this story better.
I have to tell my story better. So, older guy, they don't give you any details about this guy. And I don't know what that means. Like, if he was in his 70s or if he was more like our age. Like, I don't know what they're calling older.
That can be often quoted as being older, yeah.
He was part of a 15-person group that went on an office team building hiking retreat where they were going to have to hike up a mountain in Colorado and then hike down. The team split in 2. So some people were summiting and descending. So while one team was up, one team was down, I don't know. They went up And his colleagues just went off without him.
Oh, my God.
And left him to descend down on his own. This guy got disoriented and a bit lost. So he left bits of his stuff on various boulders to mark his way down.
Oh, that poor chap.
The colleagues found his stuff and took it away. So he could not get his bearings at all.
Oh, no.
This was around 11:30 in the morning. So he then texted a pin drop to his co-workers who were already descending, telling them, hey, I'm lost and I don't know where I am and I don't know how to get down. And they're like, just go back to the top and get back on the trail.
Unbelievable.
Fast forward to 3:50 p.m. He sent another location pin drop to his co-workers telling them, I'm still lost. I can't find the trail. And as Mother Nature will do, minutes later, a huge storm swept through with freezing cold rain and high winds. He lost his way even more. He lost his mobile signal, completely uncontactable. So what did his colleagues do?
Went home.
Went home.
Fuckwits.
No one went out to even try and look for him.
Oh, my God.
And then at 9 o'clock that night, they called emergency services. Oh, our colleague's missing.
You cunt.
9 o'clock.
Honestly, that is outrageous. I am shocked and upset about this as well, Michelle.
What the actual fuck? So 2 rescue teams after 9 o'clock were sent out along with drones to look for him. But these freezing cold rains and winds were too dangerous for even the search and rescue crews.
God.
So they had to abandon the rescue and leave him on that mountain all fucking night. Until
God.
9 a.m. I know, until 9 a.m. the following day when a break in the weather allowed those rescue teams to resume looking for this guy. So they, by that stage, had called in 9 additional search and rescue groups to go out looking for this poor bastard.
Okay, no.
But somehow, Geordie, not only was this guy alive, but he managed to get a tiny sliver of reception for just a minute, managed to call 911 and send a pin drop. And basically, besides being delirious and unable to walk, because he had fallen 20 plus times during this ordeal, they finally found him and had to use ropes to get him off this goddamn mountain, where he was then airlifted to a nearby hospital.
Who found him? The 911 responders or?
Well, 911 coordinated with the search groups that
Okay.
were already out looking for him.
Dickheads.
They did coordinate this. But what the fuck?
Who's accountable for this absolute shit show of a fuck up?
I don't know, but 15 colleagues and
That's
not
outrageous.
one of them went to look for him.
They need to be held
or stayed with
to
him.
account for this.
I think so too.
It's a shame on you. Shame on you and you and you and you, all of them.
They left him behind in the first place while they summited. Then his co-workers let him go on his own up, even though he had said, I'm lost. Then they moved his markers, so he was even more lost.
Unbelievable.
Then they told him to find his own way down. They didn't call it in until 9 o'clock.
Shame on you.
I only think these people were trying to kill this guy. What else could there be? Even if you don't like your work colleague, this is a human. You don't just leave them to die on a fucking mountain. I thought that was horrendous.
That's just incredible, Michelle. And you know what? In a way, it reminds me of a couple of things that have come up for me this week.
Oh.
First of all, Severance. It reminds me of an episode of Severance. And that's as much as I'll say. Those who are watching will understand what I'm talking about. Secondly, and I don't know what we were talking about that led us to this, but my husband brought up a film that he watched where it was a bunch of people on a yacht having a fantastic time. And one by one, they all jumped off the yacht into the beautiful water for a swim. And the last person who jumped off forgot to put the ladder down. And there was no one else left on the yacht, so they all drowned.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, and that's the film? He said, yeah. And I was like, that's a short film. Thanks for that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? That just reminded me of that episode of The Office where there's a fire alarm and there's a girl in a wheelchair and they put her into the stairwell and everyone just leaves the girl in the wheelchair in the stairwell. And Ricky Gervais is like, run.
Oh.
It's so wrong.
He's amazing. It's so typical of that kind of me first attitude. People just do not think outside of their own awareness area. You know, they just think about themselves and can't consider what it might be like for others who are outside of their capabilities.
I think that about cult leaders.
Do you now? Have you got a culty story to tell?
Well, actually, I've got two because I found a few.
Oh.
And actually, there's this one. I'm going to keep it in the bag for a future episode, Geordie, because it looks so fucking juicy, but also heartbreaking. And there's something I need to watch.
Right.
Like there's a 3-part documentary attached to this particular cult.
You best do your due diligence.
I know I'm going to shelve that because I'm going to go all in on that one. So today I'm looking at 2 cults. First of all, this is a teeny tiny look at the cult of Jackie. Have you heard of this?
Jackie Magazine.
Well, this is what I thought. I was like, Jackie Annual? What? Because I had those growing up.
Or is it the cult of Jackie from MAFS Series 12, Australia?
Oh my God, that bitch.
Because we could start a cult after that girl. She's fascinating.
Top notch for acting accolades for that bitch. I tell you, she is out there.
So what did Jen say?
Jen was saying, where are all the Jackie annuals? She tried to buy some for my sister's girls. And she said, they don't make annuals anymore. And I said, oh, well, I'll have to find some old ones for the girls and they can delve back into the 80s when annuals were all the rage.
I've got my Judy here.
Your Judy, yes.
I've got the Judy. Shall I have a quick flick?
You can have a quick flick.
Just for those of you who don't know what we're talking about regarding annuals, here's the Judy annual for girls, 1969. I have read excerpts from this before, but a quick flick will take me to, there's stories, there's cartoons. Polly and her pram is here. Take your baby sister for a walk. Yeah, young Polly Perkins often helps her mother taking baby out. There's a whole comic strip about that.
Oh, Jesus. Riveting.
What's this? Spike Milligan. I missed this.
What?
Spike Milligan. The whole story of Spike Milligan in comic book form.
What the hell? Okay, maybe you need to pin that for an actual deep dive.
I love Spike Milligan. Let's hope is he cancelled?
Probably. They all are.
No, don't say that. I love Spike.
The thing is, that generation, they were all doing dodgy things with young girls and thinking nothing of it. And now it's all coming back to bite them on the assholes. No, let's go back to the cult of Jackie. It is not Jackie from MAFS. It is also known as Jehovah, Allah, Christ, Krishna, Immortal, Easwaran. That's what Jackie stands for.
All religions, basically.
Yep. Jehovah, Allah. I mean, like, it's Christ. Like, all Krishna, like, all of it together. It's like, what the hell?
Who's the I and the E?
Immortal.
Oh.
Easwaran. I don't know what that is.
Don't know.
Easwaran. Didn't look that up. It was led by a guy called Aravindan Balakrishnan, who was a communist cult leader operating in the UK, Geordie. UK.
Oh.
He was known to his followers as Comrade Bala. Aravindan was born in Kerala, India. He moved to Singapore, then to the UK, where he established the Workers' Institute of Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong Thought Commune in London.
Okay, I wonder if there's a pub that I've been to, which is one of... Oh, you've been there as well.
Which one?
There's a pub in Clapham that is a bit of a workers... It's a workers'
yes,
pub.
I know the one you mean.
The workers' labour... I don't know.
Yes. Well, I don't know if it's Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong Thought Commune in London. I'm not sure if that's...
It's probably not that.
Well, anyway, of course, this became a cult. So Aravindan was big on control. He had to have control over his followers. And one of the ways he did this was he invented Jackie.
Right.
Jackie is apparently a mystical machine that he claimed could monitor all thoughts and control people's minds.
Wow.
So like I said, acronym for Jehovah, Allah, Christ, Krishna and Immortal, Easwaran. And it did represent all those religious figures and ideologies all in one. And Aravindan would use Jackie to manipulate and dominate his followers, kind of convincing them that he had supernatural powers and that they were under constant surveillance. And all of this sounds fucking terrible.
Well, it just sounds like a cult.
It is a cult.
Yeah.
It's a cult.
It's classic cult.
Classic cult. Essentially, they were in kind of this commune, but it went really deep underground after a police raid in the early 80s in London, which, of course, freaked out Aravindan. and his control over his followers became even more aggressive and more oppressive. And he totally isolated them from the outside world. And like all cult leaders, he subjected his followers to all sorts of fucked up shit, including physical abuse, psychological abuse, all different kinds of punishment, all kinds of crazy rules, you know, the usual kind of culty stuff where you'd be punished for any little thing that was outside of the rules. There was weird sex stuff and sadistic stuff, but not going into that.
Thank you.
But apparently in 2013, 3 women were rescued from the commune, and they spilled the tea on the extent of the abuse and the control of the whole Jackie cult. And Geordie, these women had been held captive for decades.
Wow.
That's a long fucking time. There was one woman that they rescued. Her name's Katie Morgan Davies. She was born into the cult and never experienced the outside world until she was released in 2013.
Oh, my God.
I actually could have done a massive deep dive into this because it sounds fucking horrific and really insane. But apparently Aravindan was eventually convicted and jailed for his crimes, including being convicted for slavery, domestic servitude, and physical and psychological abuse.
Oh, he sounds like a terrible human being.
Yeah, and I'd never even heard of this cult. And this was in London.
There are so many, though, that we haven't heard of. That's why it's a rich seam.
It is a rich
podcast
seam.
fodder.
I know. And this one sounds, you know, particularly horrific. So after looking at that, I thought, I'm going to go light. I'm going to go light for the next cult. We're looking at Little Acting Cult.
Oh, so we're done with that, Aravindan.
We're done with Aravindan.
Jackie.
Jackie's done. I'm moving on from Jackie.
Oh, hang on. Let's just mark that move with a little segue of the kazoo.
Look, I'm not trivializing any cult because I think when you're in something like that, it must feel absolutely fantastic and then fucking awful once you realize you're in a cult. I don't know, you're not up to this part in The White Lotus, but it did remind me of this Parker Posey scene where she's talking about cults and gurus. You know, she's an actor, and this is all about acting. It's an acting cult.
Okay.
So I am looking at the guru of Toluca Lake, a.k.a. dodgy Hollywood acting coach, Candace Silvers, who is now a false prophet energy healer.
Oh, no.
Allegedly.
Okay. In her own words. Self-proclaimed.
Yes. So for the people who are devoted to her practices, Candace Silvers is, for them, a brilliant acting coach who uses self-improvement to develop people's emotional characters.
Is she successful at this then?
Well, I think she has had her followers. This is what I mean.
Right.
There is such a fine line with this whole story because some people say she's just an amazing acting coach and others say it's a fucking cult.
Okay. So it's all down to how you view it and your own experiences within it.
Yes, but this also is kind of a bit jejune.
Oh.
What is real? What is your interpretation of it? For those who managed to kind of escape her acting classes and escape her teachings, they say she's an emotional manipulator who is emotionally poisoning people.
Oh.
So I think you have this with anyone. If you're in the cult, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
Until it's not. And I think that Keith Ranieri's disciples could probably agree with that.
Yes.
And of course, there's that drip, drip, drip of things that are slightly outside your comfort zone until that becomes normalized because everybody else is doing it. Then there's ramping up again of something that also feels a little bit morally not okay, but everybody else is doing it. So, okay, I'll do it too. Now it's normalized. It's that frog in the frying pan analogy that we hear about.
I'm going to talk about that. That is something that someone brought up. So pin that because it's coming.
I'll pin that frog down to the frying pan. Poor frog's having a really bad time.
You fry that frog. Look, I do want to point out that all my info today comes from just one article in The Hollywood Reporter from 2021 because there is nothing else out there. I don't know if she's had the internet scrubbed or what is going on.
Or like Jejun Institute, it's
Yes.
the hoax of it.
I don't know. But Candace Silvers refused to be a part of this Hollywood Reporter article. So she did not contribute or refute anything more than to have a representative provide a statement where, like any so-called cult leader, she did reject all the claims against her, basically saying that the allegations against her are from a small, disgruntled group of former clients who have stolen her techniques and started up their own acting classes to compete with her, and that this 1% of angry ex-students do not represent all the people she's helped over the past 30 years.
Okay, that's really difficult, isn't it? Because is she right? Is it just some disgruntled people who think, oh, we can do this better, she was shit at her job or whatever, or we didn't like her methods, so we're going to do it better? Or is it, in a Trumpian kind of way, apologies for those of you who love Trump, if you're out there, kind of to slam your opposition and to discredit her opposition?
Yes. Well, look, instead of giving an interview herself, she, for this article, gave client testimonials from gushing students who credit her with helping them, not just with acting, but with everything from their love lives to saving them from addiction. They say she helped them succeed in business and to become more emotionally available. And they say if her techniques didn't work for you, you're the problem.
Right.
Because you're stuck in fear.
Okay.
And this is a quote from the article, not everyone is willing to take full responsibility for their circumstances, and it may be easier to place blame than work through the hard parts of life, says a devotee called Tim Risley. He says the results can be amazing, life-changing.
But you have to put the work in.
But it also leads to new levels and new devils. Such is growth.
Well, I would agree with that sentence, Tim. Absolutely. But in the wrong hands, it can be abused, that kind of philosophy, if you like. I do think that if you want to improve, you do need to look at all corners and all aspects and facets of yourself as a human being. And some of that might be difficult. And if you're not willing to put the work in, you're not going to gain much reward. So with that, I do agree.
Yes, but I also think that typically, and I am just stereotyping here, actors are vulnerable, often emotionally sensitive. They are seeking attention. That's why many go into this line of work. And they represent a vulnerable group.
Poor actors.
Some people say she's an absolute fucking godsend, and other people say she's an evil fucking cult leader. So where is the truth here? But what exactly does she do? Because when I Googled her, it seems she has totally rebranded herself since this article came out in 2021. She's now rebranded herself into being a wellness guru. There's no acting classes. And I am wondering if the bad publicity from the Hollywood Reporter article dried up all her acting class work, and she decided to kind of fully focus on spirituality and healing. But either way, she now has a healing academy, which is available online and in some places, actual locations, 51 countries.
That's a nice far reach, isn't it?
She knows how to market herself. You go on the website, it does not say what kind of healing she teaches or what kind of healing she gives. It's just that if you hand over a big fucking amount of money, you can learn what she teaches in a 6-week training course. And the price was undisclosed, but I have seen online that it's, between 7 and 15 grand.
This all sounds very loosey-goosey, Michelle. Like she's advertising something that you don't know anything about for a figure that you don't know what it is. Come on down to this acting challenge or whatever it is and be better, but you won't know what's involved.
No.
Which is weird. So why would anyone fall for that?
Because I think it's a word of mouth thing.
Okay.
I think it's probably like, oh my God, she's amazing. And then they go on the website and it seems to me like one of those, if you know, you know.
It reminds me a little bit of this one taste cult that you spoke about previously, and it did ripple through a lot of the creative circles. And in fact, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but we have people that we know, eavesdroppers in fact, who did attend a One Taste event because the people that they were working with were also heavily into it, and they are household names.
And that's the thing. Same circle, same Hollywood kind of circles here with this woman.
All it takes is one person to rant and rave about it, and then suddenly, I don't want to miss out on that. I want to have that too.
Does he keep you awake at night?
What a cult.
Are you a child bride?
What a cult.
If he moves you to Guyana, tell him I don't wanna. Oh, baby, it's a cult.
It's a cult. What a cult.
You're in a cult.
So Candace does private coaching. She does behavioral coaching. She does retreats, events, healing sessions that are either one-on-one or in groups. She does it over Zoom or in real life. She also does remote photo healings where you send her photos of yourself, clothed, I will add.
Oh, thank
She
God.
doesn't want nudes. She heals you by looking at the photos. So she is one busy lady. I'm sure for some people, she's better than a doctor. Like, oh, Candace will heal me. But for others, especially those who spoke to the Hollywood Reporter for their expose, she's a sham. There was a woman called Ashley Phillips who was one of Candace's acting students before she got roped into taking her other courses. And she used an analogy that you just used. She said, she's got it wrong. We know it's frog in a fry pan, but she says, quote, "You know how you can boil a frog by turning up the heat? That's what happened to me and a lot of others. The heat kept being turned up and up and up." And another victim, Megan Bailey, said, "There's a lot of codependency. She helps people out just enough that they feel they're getting something, but not enough that they can stand on their own 2 feet, that they can get better and that they can see what she's doing."
What a clever woman.
Really. And this is what I mean. You look at what she's doing. What side of the fence are you looking at it from?
Yeah.
And in the article, people speak about how Candace's toxic advice isolated them from friends and family. Classic cult tactic.
Yeah, isolation.
They also say that when they first signed up with Candace, she would love bomb them.
Yeah.
You know, you're the best, you're amazing,
You can do this.
you're going to get that gold. I was going to say gold Logie. You're going to get that.
Aim for the top, the gold Logie.
Gold Logie. You're going to get that Academy Award. You know, I think she'd love bomb them. And then she would undermine them. Again, classic cult tactics.
Yeah.
And then they'd say she would push recruitment. She would get her students to bring in
And that was your job.
fresh recruits, sign them up for more classes. We need more people. Sign up, tell your friends.
This is very Nixium.
Yes.
Keith Raniere again.
This is what I think too. And apparently Candace also promised students that their financial dreams would come true while at the same time draining their bank accounts with endless costs for classes. Nixium, all over.
Where were they living? In their own homes, or were they all in a compound somewhere?
No, they were all living in their own homes. Although I will say that in the article, a spokesman for Candace, because I told you she didn't want to be interviewed for the article, they said, quote, "Candace does not promise or guarantee that her students will achieve their financial goals simply by attending her classes."
Caveat. Small print.
But apparently, according to people who spoke out in the article, she does make these promises. And then when no acting jobs come their way, but they still want to stick with Candace because they're a bit brainwashed, because they feel like, oh, I just need to do more classes, I need to get better.
My
then
break
the acting
will come.
jobs will come. Yes. You know, they're hopeful that they're still going to make it. She then says, okay, you've got no money for doing the classes. You can work for me for free. And this is anything from go and do my home renovations.
Wow.
You can be my personal trainer, give me a massage. Basically, she's giving these poor brainwashed
Oh my God.
wannabes classes in exchange for, you know, domestic slavery.
So suffice to say, Michelle, there are no famous actors or well-known actors or anyone actually working that we would have seen involved in this particular cult.
Well, I'm getting to a few, which is a very grey area here.
Okay.
Pin that because There are some names that we do know, but they are distancing from her.
So some of them did get work, is what I'm hinting at.
No, It's weird. But there is a quote from a guy called Alex Helisek, who did manage to get out of all of this. And he says, quote, "Once people were there, they were her disciples. She loves to say, surrender. Surrender is major. It's 1000% a cult. Everything outside the Candace world became void to me while I was there. There was rent, there was food, and there was Candace. That was life." Wow. She's obviously got some kind of charisma that is drawing these people in. And in fact, a lot of former students and staff the Hollywood Reporter spoke to, they say with hindsight, they can consider that Candace is, give or take, a cult leader. Yeah. And they say she has a domineering personality and that she uses manipulative language. She collects, and this is also very NXIVM, she collects private and sensitive info about her students/disciples. Oh, no. And like the collateral that we saw in NXIVM, she then uses that against them. And she does it in sessions. So she will humiliate you by bringing up something that you spoke to her about in a private one-on-one in a group session, or she will privately use it against you. And there was one guy called Rory Pollinger, who is an event planner who studied with Candace for 2 years. He believes she's a cult leader and is benefiting significantly more than anyone else in her organisation. And he talks about a moment when Candace made a humiliating observation about his body in front of the class, just a week after praising him for this kind of career high accomplishment when he helped pull off a 2012 Twilight Saga premiere. So he's an event planner. This is not just actors. These are people who are all in this Hollywood kind of bubble. He says that many people involved in Candace's classes are processing shit, like sexual trauma.
Yeah, for sure.
And that he says her method of crossing boundaries harms people who are already vulnerable. And he says she does this without physically touching them. Instead, she emotionally poisons them.
Yeesh.
And then there is actress Lindsay McKeon, who played Katie Peterson on Saved by the Bell. She was also in something called The New Class, and she played Taylor James on One Tree Hill. And she was taking Candace's acting classes, but she did not feel right about it. In fact, she felt a bit lost and like she'd been led down this ugly path that she didn't like. And eventually she did leave the group, despite the fact that it meant cutting ties with this really close-knit group that she'd shared a lot with over the years.
Yeah.
And she said it actually took going to a cult debriefer to fully grasp the extent of her situation, because for the past 7 years, she had not only been going to Candace's class, but she'd actually been sort of promoted up the chain as a bit of a lieutenant to Candace.
Right.
And was helping Candace build her business and attract clients. And the cult debriefer said to her, "You're not crazy." And she was like, "This happened. What we all went through and what we were thinking it was a cult."
Yeah.
And what made it even harder for Lindsay is that she was married to Candace's husband's son.
Okay, so she was family, basically.
So that connection was even harder to break. But once she did, she realised that Candace is exploiting vulnerable people who were desperate to make it in Hollywood. And Candace was doing it for her own personal gain. And like I said before, she witnessed Candace, using painful and personal experiences as leverage against people. We saw the devastating consequences that had for NXIVM people.
Yeah.
And I think these people who are already emotionally vulnerable, they're getting fucked over again. She brainwashed us, says a woman called Jessica Sutter, who met Candace in 2006, just as her band, the Pussycat Dolls, were at the height of their fame.
Right.
And Jessica says, when you're in it, you're drunk in love. When you're out of it, you're just like, holy shit, how did I fall for that?
Yeah.
Jessica was involved with Candace for 5 years, and she's pretty blunt about Candace. She says She manipulated you, fed on your insecurities, knew how to control you. She makes you feel like you can't live without her. That is a fucking cult.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the money stuff, right? So she apparently tries to make you sign over 10% of your future earnings to her.
What? Oh, she's covered all the bases.
Yeah. She thinks that what she is offering, she should get the same cut as a manager or an agent because basically, as a teacher, she thinks she's given you the tools to be a success and she wants her cut, despite the fact you've paid for her classes.
She's applying that kind of, if you do a voiceover, for example, you get paid for the job, but if you're clever, your agent will advise you to sign an in perpetuity agreement, which means if you do the Toys R Us commercial, for example, which ends up going on and on and on, or auto glass repair or whatever, which they use still to this day, you get paid every time it goes on. It's like being a musician and paying your PRS.
Exactly.
So she's applying that model to all of these people. But the thing is, they're not working.
No.
So where's that money coming from?
Exactly. I mean, I think she's delusional. And this actually happened to an actress called Tori DeVito, who was in a show called Chicago Med. And she'd been working with Candace and had this amazing resume that included parts in Pretty Little Liars, One Tree Hill, Vampire Diaries. She was doing well in her career. But Candace told her that everything she'd done in her career up until the point she met Candace and started doing Candace's classes was just luck, and that everything after Candace, all her accomplishments would be on purpose. 10% please. And she also said, I'm going to take 10% of your income. And Tori's like, don't think so. And she left the acting classes before she signed anything. Like I hinted at before, Candace has a knack for taking credit for people's careers, even when they never even took a class with her.
That's bold, isn't it?
You talked in the Jejune episode about Jason Segel.
Yes.
So apparently Candace met this guy, Jason, in a restaurant for 5 minutes.
Well, I bumped into him like I bumped into Paul McCartney.
Exactly. And
I'm going to take credit for his success.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, literally 5 minutes. He never took a class. And this guy is in stuff like How I Met Your Mother. He was in Shrinking. We talked a little bit about him last episode.
He was in that Muppet Show movie, which I couldn't remember the name of last week's episode. Am I a man or am I a Muppet?
So basically, after she met Jason Segel, she went back to her acting class and told them she was responsible for his success.
Wow. And did he refute that? He wouldn't give a shit. Probably it was so low level and off his radar.
She said, even though he was never a student of hers, his success was down to her because she had once taught his co-star, Josh Radnor.
Oh.
So she said, and this is what Candace said of Jason, this kid wouldn't have had a job if Josh wasn't as good as he was. If I hadn't trained Josh, he wouldn't have been on that hit show. He was nobody, not going anywhere.
That's crazy talk.
Really. And Josh says he went to a handful of her acting classes and they did not land on me.
So he's not even saying that her classes helped.
No. And he said he did not like that she's using his name to recruit acting students. And I bet Jason Segel doesn't either. So in 2008, Candace rebranded herself as a bit of a guru after a trip to India, where she met a younger guru called Anand Mehrotra. She started co-leading retreats with him, and she then started encouraging all her acting students to go to India, go to these classes, and then come to the ones that I'm doing here. Apparently, before she went to India, she was all kind of like designer clothes, shoes, and, the big blowouts. But afterwards, scarves, beads, caftans, open-toed sandals, and she wanted to be worshipped like a god. Then she all told her students they had to, it was compulsory, if they wanted to do her acting classes, they had to attend her new life class, which was later rebranded a human behavior course, which blended self-actualization philosophies with bits from Alcoholics Anonymous. And she says that she can help you identify and alter unconscious behavioral patterns to achieve unprecedented success.
Well, who doesn't want that? That is a big claim, and I would sign up
Yeah.
if it was legit.
But she's a total fucking hustler. So she'd set
Yeah.
up all these human behavior classes where each session she would talk to people about their troubles. And as we know, she's just collecting collateral. And then she would guide these people through their troubles with some kind of spiritual advice and then try to help turn their troubles into teachable moments. And
Wow.
look, I think for some people that might have really been helpful.
Yeah, just being able to talk is an amazing cathartic experience. To be sitting in a group or one-to-one with like-minded people or somebody who is non-judgmental and who is giving you all of the, authentic feels.
Yes.
It's very cathartic, and that may have been the first time for many people.
Exactly. And she would hold these classes in her home and people would really get into it. But there were some who felt extremely uncomfortable about how she was conducting herself and the way she'd set up this whole class, because she would put all these kind of like sheepskins on the floor. You would have to sit on the ground and she would sit above you. So already
status.
she's setting herself like that. And she would do the whole like burn incense. And apparently her dad was some kind of old time star in Hollywood. And she had his Emmys behind her. So kind of like reflected glory, like she had some kind of credibility because her dad had been a little bit famous. And then she would try and play on these stereotypes to push her message. And she'd say things like, quote, "If I were an Indian man with long flowing hair and a beard, I'd have this room full of hundreds of people. But because I'm a white woman in Toluca Lake, people think it's bullshit." And some people are like, fuck yeah, she's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of her USPs was that, a little bit like me, she loved a swear word. And she would also, not like me, she would love to scream at people. She really loved like aggression, screaming at you and pushing.
Not like you,
Not like me.
unless you're a call handler on some platform that you can never reach.
Yes, I know. But, just do your job and I won't get mad at you. She would use shocking language to try and like get people out of themselves. And apparently, for some, her blunt manner and the swearing was really exhilarating. They found it kind of like she's real. And there was one woman called Jackie Jones, who is like a comedian. She started as a client and then ended up working for Candace. She said, and this is a quote, "She was cutting through the frivolous bullshit and speaking my language." Candace had all these self-help phrases, things like, "If you try to stay within the wave you think you're in, you're always trying to stay within the wave."
What? That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's not that good. And then she had this one, "Once we expect we deserve, we deserve."
What?
Not bad. It's a play on deserve.
Okay.
Once you expect you deserve something, you deserve.
It still doesn't make much sense to me.
It's not bad, but it's a bit shit. And then she said, and this one we all know, "You can't change the people around you. You can only change yourself."
I got
which
that.
I agree with. But apparently the way she said it or screamed it,
Oh,
she would scream this shit while calling you an idiot.
oh no.
You're a fucking idiot. You can't change anyone else. So people would hear these things in a different way.
Right.
And you're going to love this. You brought this up earlier. She's a Trump supporter.
Oh, so she's a fan of that kind of belittling the opposition.
Yes. I think it says it all right there. And apparently she would defend her decision to be a Trump supporter by saying things like, "I'm just doing this to challenge you. I'm triggering you and I'm pissing you off so we can see how silly our minds are."
All right. Okay.
So for her, it was all about getting an emotional reaction, apparently, to try to bring clients' emotional blocks to the surface so they could move through these blocks with awareness into, quote, a more successful life.
But actually what she's doing is bringing these emotions to the surface and triggering fears, triggering insecurities, triggering possibly a state of mind where they don't know what's up and what's down, and now are finding it really hard to make a decision about their own freedom of choice.
I mean, look, let's face it, this bitch wants to be a guru. She's even created chants with her name in it. She's put her own name into these chants, right? And then she created all of, probably on Photoshop, all these devotional images of herself that people can put in the middle of shrines so they can worship her image.
Oh no, that makes me really uncomfortable.
There is some dodgy shit as well. So apparently Candace does share with her groups her own story of molestation, but when other people share their traumas, she questions them and she gets skeptical.
Oh.
And in June 2019, there was an actress called Sierra Santana, absolutely amazing name. She spoke about her rape experience by a co-worker after a night out. And Candace apparently kind of acknowledged what had happened, but then pivoted the whole situation, saying, and I find this so shocking, she said, men find it difficult to adapt to the collapse of patriarchal society. And she said to this poor woman that since, quote, he doesn't think he raped you, the best course of action is to become aware of where he's coming from. So she, the person who was raped, can take ownership and power. And to that, I think, what the actual fuck? Where is the man's responsibility in this?
That is problematic. Yes, absolutely. In a way, though, I do agree with the patriarchal society breaking down and men not being able to cope. But that is never an excuse for sexual assault or rape or any kind of exertion of power over somebody.
No. And he apparently is like, it wasn't rape. And she's like,
He said.
yes.
Well, that's one word against the other, unfortunately.
So then there's also a medical side to all this stuff, because she is all about, you don't need those antidepressant meds.
Oh, no.
She's got no medical training. People come to her and they're feeling suicidal and she's telling them to chuck their meds.
Oh, dear. Oh, no, that's so dangerous.
Really dangerous. And of course, there's some money swindling, because after her India trip, Candace decided to become a Siwamurti practitioner, which is this Balinese healing technique similar to Reiki, which can be performed either in person or remotely. And she learned it from a priest called Ratanabi. And now she's hawking retreats with him and creaming money off the top and encouraging her students to do the retreat and get into debt. And there's this one woman, Kimberly Aravalo, who said she'd never been in debt before. She's a structural engineer who ended up 30 grand in debt on a credit card before she managed to escape Candace's clutches in July 2020. There's an actress called Lenia Gaston who says, if Candace wanted you to go on a treat, she said you should go to the edge of your mind and jump off, and that's how you'll get your life. Candace then told this woman, sell your car and take out a credit card. You have to go on this retreat.
That's a lot. This woman, she's just entrepreneurial to the nth degree. She's trying to find a way to squeeze the cash out of all these people, and it's abhorrent.
Well, this Watanabe, he heard that Candace was basically using his name.
Piggybacking off of him.
Yeah, and he has disassociated from her and wants nothing to do with her shady practices. I'll go back to kind of a question I posed at the beginning of all this. Is this a cult?
Yes.
Yes. I would say yes.
Yeah.
During her classes and at retreats, Candace has said things like, I know my integrity and my intention. And then she'd say things like, tell me, what about this looks like a cult?
Everything.
Yeah. And she says, I scream at you people and you thank me for it and you go home. I've never heard of a cult like that.
But that is a cult.
I know. And then she's like, usually they appease you. You wear all the same colours. And then she's like, although we do smoke shit together.
So I'm just thinking about Charles Manson in this moment right now. I don't think he considered himself to be the leader of a cult necessarily. I might be wrong, but he kept his family with him through all sorts of means. And mostly that was physical and sexual abuse and yelling in their faces and things like that. And they stayed. You know,
Yes.
I've only got the information that I've got from the autobiography that I read from one of the members. But there is this thing out that Safka recommended called Chaos, and it's interesting. I haven't gotten very far into it, but already there's prison interviews of Manson saying things like, I wanted to stay in jail. That was my home, because this is, you know, he was a jailbird from childhood. And then when he was turfed out for whatever minor misdemeanors he was in for, and then he was set free walking the streets of San Francisco or wherever, he noticed that he had this charm and this eloquence and that drew people in. And that created the Manson that we know.
Yes.
Which is somebody who realizes that they've got something they're able to manipulate in others, and they will use that for their own gain.
People are saying that Candace is using people's traumas against them and that they compare her to a mirror, that they reflect back the person's own traumas or problems. This is a quote from a guy called Stephen Zimple, who spent a decade in her classes while he was trying to become an actor since the beginning of 2003. And he said, I think a lot of people weren't prepared for the journey. All the people I saw who left bitter weren't done with the work. So she makes you believe that
it's coming.
You still have to
work at it.
You're still stuck in the fear. The reason you're not successful is because you haven't done enough classes. You haven't dug deep enough.
You haven't spent enough.
Yeah. But on the flip side of that is what she's doing is not taking responsibility for what she does to people. And that's gaslighting. So Lindsay McKeon, who was married to Candace's husband's son, who went to the Cult deprogrammer, she says of her time with Candace, after a while, you feel almost untouchable when you're on the inside, that there's this force field and it's created by her, that if you go outside of this cult, it will be damaging for you. I thought that if I left, I might get cancer and die.
Oh, wow.
It felt like there was a part of my brain that I never got back after I worked with her. It was terrifying. For me, in leaving, I had to fight to be myself again. I was this machine operated by Candace, and I had to claw my way back.
Isn't that shocking? Isn't that really sad that these people feel that way and have lost a part of themselves and part of their brain has been rendered useless?
Yeah. So cult or cunt?
Both.
But all I'll say to our Hollywood listeners, be careful next time you take that acting class. Be careful what you're getting into.
Trust yourself. Again, more cults being unearthed daily here at Eavesdroppin HQ. We had not one but two. And I'm actually quite intrigued about the first one. It sounds horrible, but I am intrigued. We are going to have to revisit cults in a few weeks, I imagine.
Yes.
Listen, we have really come to the end of our tethers here with cults today, though. I think I've heard quite enough of that for one day. But until next time,
there's only 3 things left to say. Wherever you are,
whatever you do, just keep eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping.